Is that better? All right. Good morning. I'll start over again. Welcome to our meeting this morning. I hope everyone had a safe trip in. It's kind of foggy out there. If you will do something for me now, I would like for you to mute anything that makes a noise whatsoever. It's very distracting to the people around you as well as to us up here, because noise kind of bounces up here. So if you take this moment to turn off your cell phones and anything that makes noise, I would appreciate it. And we will begin with our invocation and pledge. Commissioner Jones.
Father, we just thank you for your presence in this place today. God, I thank you, Lord, that you've given us such a wonderful staff. Even as we recognize administrators this week and the wonderful job they do, our correctional officers, and even our small businesses that are the backbone of our country. Father, we thank you for wisdom and guidance. Lord, we have a lot of controversial issues that are coming up. So I ask, God, that you give us wisdom and bring peace to the community, and God, even give us a plan to work together to make Walden County the most wonderful county in the whole world. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I will officially call the meeting to order. We need to consider additions and deletions at this time. Mr. Jones?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have 3 additions for your consideration. Under the consent agenda, we're asking to add a request to approve a resolution to recognize unanticipated revenues and amend the first year of the election systems and software contract into the FY16 budget. This is a request from the Supervisor of Elections to purchase some systems and software. You have a contract that has been passed out to you just this morning along with that. Next item is under the County Attorney is a request by the applicant Sandestin Development, Inc. to continue the quasi-judicial hearing set for April 28, 2016 on the amended notice of proposed change. And the third item is under Commissioner Empfeld is a discussion of the surplus sales tax revenue for the 331 Bridge and Park project.
Very good. Do I have a motion to approve the additions or deletions?
So moved.
Second.
And to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Yeah.
Aye.
And Madam Chair, I'd like to have one item removed from the consent agenda for further discussion.
Okay. Let me take public comment, and then we will do that. I think that. Is there anyone that would like to comment on anything that is on the agenda at this time? Is on our agenda. If you would like to comment about something that's on the agenda, now's your opportunity to do so. As each item comes up, we will ask for public comment again, but if anyone would like to comment at this time, please come forward and state your name and spell your last name for the record. Seeing none, we will move on. Items to be removed from the consent agenda. Mr. Renfell.
Madam Chair, I'd like to ask that we remove for discussion the 5th item under expenditure request dealing with the tax deeds. There's an issue on one of those, and so I'd like to have that as part of a discussion and not part of consent.
All right.
That's my motion.
That is your motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion among the board? Anyone in the audience want to speak to that item? If not, all those in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Give me a minute. Now I need a motion to approve the consent agenda minus the item.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next we have the Waste Management EAL.
Madam Chair, I want to announce my conflict of interest and file the proper form with the clerk.
Very good. Thank you, sir. I need a motion to approve the Waste Management EAL.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any discussion? Anyone in the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. All right, Mr. Jones.
Madam Chair, if I can do the item that we took off the consent agenda. And
Okay.
my concern is that if you take a look at the spreadsheet that came with the agenda and you look at the 7th item on there, which is 081S19-23000-0030014, it is the Coyote landfill in Freeport. I I have concern that we're asking to pay for a tax deed for it, and my concern is the potential for liability. And I've asked the county attorney, Mr. Davis, to update us on what this means by getting a tax deed and what this payment would do for any liability that the county might incur by taking over a Coyote landfill.
Commissioner, just to answer the question, let me just walk you through quickly tax deeds and tax certificates. Section 197-432, I think it's paren 5 of the Florida statutes, requires that tax certificates that are not sold, in other words, a piece of property is real property taxes have not been paid. There's an advertisement and we auction off tax certificates, but if one is not sold, then the statute uses the term struck. They're given to the county. Section 197-4725 says that if those things are struck, if there are tax certificates struck to the county, anybody without further advertisement may come in and purchase those particular tax certificates. These are not tax deeds. These are certificates where the taxes are paid and somebody's issued a certificate. After 2 years, if I hold a tax certificate or if the county holds a tax certificate, after 2 years, someone who's holding that certificate may apply for a deed on the piece of property. It's called a tax deed. And again, that is an auction process. You apply for the tax deed. The tax certificate holder is paid from the proceeds of the auction, the money they have in the tax certificate plus some interest. The county is in the same boat. For those tax certificates that we hold for the property that is valued more than $5,000, we are required by Section 197-502 to apply for the tax deeds. That's the agenda item you're being asked for today. You have to apply for tax deeds for those properties. That does not mean we have to bid on those particular tax deeds at auction. There's a minimum bid that's set, but we don't have to actually enter a bid. In fact, I would encourage us not to enter a bid on the Coyote landfill piece of property for the very large reason that if we don't enter a bid and no one else buys it, the property goes into a list of properties called unclaimed, or it's a list. And those properties, again, can be purchased by anybody for the cost of the tax deed sale and the cost of the certificates without any further notice. If they're not purchased within that, I think it's a 3-year period. I think that's right, 3-year period. And then that property, and here's a legal word, that property escheats to the county. We would own it. But if it goes through that process, we don't buy it at the tax deed sale, and it escheats to the county 3 years later, then we get some liability, some significant liability protections by statute, including no responsibility for groundwater, that sort of thing, groundwater contamination. So we are required to apply for all of these tax deeds that are values greater than $5,000, but we do not necessarily have to buy the property at the tax deed sale, and then at some point the property would escheat to us, but it comes to us that way with some pretty significant liability protections.
So I will make a motion to approve then, with the understanding that that's the process and that we will not be making a bid for it.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Is there any more discussion among the board?
This piece of property is in my district, and it's quite obvious that what's out there is going to take some significant money to the proper closure on that. And we've had conversations with DEP and the carrier of the former owner or the owner of the property to get it closed out properly. But it is one piece of property that'll never be of any value to anybody else because you can't construct on it, and it's just a bad piece of property for anything. So I just want to make that known. I agree with the Commissioner Infield's motion concerning we don't want to get at that point down the road 3 years, whenever it is.
Madam Chair, if I may, Commissioner Chapman alluded to the fact that the county's been working with DEP on the appropriate closure measures. As late as yesterday, we had a conference call whereby we're looking to enter an agreement with the DEP that will properly close that facility. It's going to be at no cost to the county. We may do some work with them and to assist in that process, but they have a rather significant amount of money available in that process. Apparently, this is not something the DEP does real regular in the way the funds are available. They need a third party to assist in that, and they've asked us to participate in that. So as we move that forward, we'll be bringing you some things for your consideration and approval to help move that process forward.
Mr. Jones, do they know the nature of the groundwater contamination yet? What's fully in there?
No, sir.
I would ask that we be cautious in the deployment of any of our people onto that site until we know what's in there.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I call the question.
All right. Anyone in the audience, I'm sorry, I didn't give them an opportunity, that would like to comment on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. I do want to commend Commissioner Chapman. I know you've been working with the city of Freeport and the people that live around there. They used to be my district. I've actually known of people living there have died from cancer living around that. So I commend you for working, trying to clean this mess up. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, the first item for your consideration is a request to approve a resolution recognizing May 1 through 7, 2016 as Correctional Officers Week in Walton County. President Reagan proclaimed the week beginning May 6 in 1984 as National Correctional Officers Week, and the first full week of May has since been recognized as such, and we're asking you to consider the attached resolution recognizing May 1 through 7 as Correctional Officers Week in Walton County.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion among the board? Seeing none, anyone in the audience? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Commissioners. Madam Chair, next item for your consideration is a request to approve the updated Public Safety Coordinating Council. The Coordinating Council is a continuing committee under the board that has a wide variety of members to it. That council has not been updated to reflect some of the current required members. That list is in your packet for your consideration. Primarily, we had a request from Rachel Gillis at the Cope Center that this council is important to their operation in receiving grants. In that conversation with Ms. Gillis, we did confirm that we had the coordinating council in place. However, it had not been updated over for some time, so we're simply asking today to update that council to reflect the current members and those that hold the offices that are represented in that membership.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you. Is there any discussion among the board?
My list shows 2 vacancies, Chief Correctional Officer and Mental Health Service family member. Do we have anybody in mind, or does the council have somebody in mind?
At this point, we do not. We will work with the other members to fill those vacancies in the near future.
Okay.
And if you have any suggestions, anybody has any suggestions, communicate them with Mr. Jones.
Yes, ma'am.
Appreciate it. We have a motion. All those in favor? Aye. All right. Motion passes.
Thank you, Commissioners. Next item is a request from the Holly Holt at the Health Department. The request is to engage 2 appraisers to appraise the parcel of property that sits a little north and west of the current facility in anticipation of utilizing that property for parking for the Health Department in the event the appraised value is reasonable enough to make a purchase. Those appraisals would be paid for out of funds in the that the county currently appropriates to the Health Department. It will not be any additional funds, so it would be paid out of the Health Department's budget, utilizing the funds that we allocate to them each year. We present that to you for your consideration. I believe Ms. Holt's here if you have any questions.
Is that where the current building is, the one that used to be the restaurant? Is that it? Yeah, okay. All right.
And no obligation to purchase anything, and it's simply taking a look at what the values are.
All right.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any discussion on this item? Anyone in the audience? Seeing none? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item, Jones Edmonds and Associates was identified as the top proposer regarding the design and engineering work for the landfill project. Today we request that you award to Jones Edmonds and approve and authorize the chairman to sign the contract with Jones Edmonds and Associates Inc. for engineering services for the new solid waste transfer station. This is for engineering, design, permitting, and design of the facility. The amount is $336,727, and we believe based on what the anticipated cost of future construction will be, that is a reasonable fee for the project.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion second. Is there any discussion among the board?
Just a question on, where did we say that money was coming from?
It's in the budget.
It's in the budget.
We budgeted this year. Yes, ma'am. I believe
Okay.
we budgeted $500,000. So,
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions from the board? Anyone in the audience like to comment on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. All those-
next item is regard to the invitation to bid 016015 for the collection and purchase of recyclable and salvageable materials. We request that you award that to Waste Management as the most responsive bidder.
Madam Chair, I will abstain from that vote.
Motion to
Mr. Jones,
approve.
clarificate, the lowest or the
Well,
best?
the best
Okay.
would be more appropriate, yes, sir.
And that collection means they collect it from the.
The landfill.
From the blue recyclables.
We will actually
Goes to-
move that to the landfill, so they will take it, once we process it at the landfill and bundle it, and they will take it from there.
They will take it from there. Okay, thanks.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion among the board? Anyone in the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next item is related. This is the request to approve and authorize the chairman to sign the agreement and contract for the purchase of recyclable and salvageable materials. So this is the contract for what the award you just made.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And I will abstain.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any discussion in the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item is a request for direction on conceptual design for 331 landscaping between the Clyde Wells Bridge and U.S. Highway 98. You have in your packet a proposed conceptual design from DOT regarding the landscaping of the medians and right-of-ways south of the bridge to U.S. 98. These funds, this project is funded through their bridge contract. It does not utilize the excess funds that the county has in reserves. I believe beginning about the time this contract was let, the DOT is required to allocate I believe it's 1% of every project to landscaping. So that's where these funds are coming from. It'll be a DOT-funded project. The greater question, and Stan can expand on this, is as designed, the project is designed to survive as it is today with no irrigation or heavy maintenance. The question is if we would like it to, using their term, thrive. It's going to take some investment beyond what's here, primarily in the maintenance and going forward cost. And I'll jump in there. I believe they're maintaining it for 2 years, but beyond that 2-year period, if we want to expand or enhance it primarily with irrigation so that it will thrive instead of survive, there will be some ongoing cost. Is that?
That's correct. As it's currently designed, there's still some money in the FDOT's budget to make these enhancements, much of which would be irrigation, which would obligate us after the 2-year sustainment period to maintain the project. However, if you move forward as it's currently designed, there'll still be the 2-year sustainability period, and after that 2-year period, 100% is required by the contractor at the end of that 2-year period, but there's no obligation to the county after that point.
So what you're saying is if we add irrigation and we want to we want it to thrive. I guess that means actually grow.
Yeah, that's the word they're looking for.
Then they're asking us after 2 years to maintain it, correct? That $6 million that's left over in the bridge budget, can that be allocated to long-term maintenance of this, since it is part of the bridge project?
That's a question we can ask. We actually haven't asked it that specific, so we can certainly find out.
Yeah, because I think it's worth having something actually grow out there and thrive. So that would be my comment.
And hate to say this, but everybody else, maybe because it is gateway to the south, looking perhaps at TDC funds. But I would also like to work with them. I noticed the pictures show boulders. I don't know about you, but I've never seen a boulder in South Walton. I mean, they're just not attractive to me. All these big rocks as you go, So I'd like to see sustainability with the plants. We all know I have an objection to palm trees, but I'll let that go. But I'm serious. Can't we find something else to put there other than these huge boulders? I could see them maybe in Denver, but not here. So
I think that's possible. I think that there's some landscape people that could, probably, yeah. I saw that comment too.
Yeah.
I agree. The boulders don't represent us.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I've had contact with the Scenic Corridor Association. They had some ideas as well, and I see Ms. Moore is back there. If I could impose on her to come up and address some of the things that they're concerned about too. I think there's some very positive suggestions that we should consider.
If you'd state your last name and spell for the record, please.
M-O-O-R-E.
Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, I am representing Scenic Corridor Foundation as a board member. Thank you.
Can y'all hear her? I didn't think so.
Push the button, Lee. Push the button, Lee.
Oh, is it not on? That's better. Good. Thank you. So representing the Scenic Corridor Foundation, I'm a board member for that organization. Landscaping the medians on 331 south of the bay and on 98 in Walton County has been one of the primary goals of the Scenic Corridor Association and Foundation for years. So needless to say, we're excited about this and love that FDOT is willing to invest a significant amount of money to install this. But yes, we did have some concerns about the design, and FDOT actually asked for both the counties and our input and feedback. So I think they're open to it. So the things that we have concerns about, number one, the boulders, yes. We think that this should just be a continuation of a lot of the landscaping we see already in South Walton in different areas. And boulders, nowhere close to here. We also have concerns about the crushed shell in the bed that's proposed for the bedding material. We see pine straw, mulch, never crushed shell. And there are concerns about the maintenance of that long term as well. The shoe-marred oaks that are proposed, they're pretty, but we see live oaks everywhere here, and that's what we're used to, and we know it grows really, really well here. And also, we too have some concerns about the palms. There are not a ton of them in this plan, but we think that should be minimized. It's good that they're using sable palms, but especially and particularly, they have proposed to put some plantings there, which is wonderful. This would be a big improvement if you're sitting on 98 and looking straight ahead on 331 looking straight ahead across 98, and you see those yellow hazard signs, and it looks kind of not attractive today. A lot of our visitors or residents spend a little time at that stoplight and are staring at that, so it ought to look good. Right now the plan calls for it to be all palms, though, and we think that would be better if it could be a mix of more commonly seen trees and maybe shrubs or whatever. So I think that was most of our feedback. We sent it to you prior to, but we just feel that it should be really what we see growing here naturally and what we see in a lot of the planned landscaping as it is around the area. And also, of course, a lot of that is so easy to maintain, or easier to maintain. And we do hope that you will figure out a way to fund this maintenance. We would love it if they would, up that budget, which they said they're willing to do if the county maintains it, and put in more grasses and shrubs and really kind of finish it off and make it look really beautiful. And of course, we like for it to thrive instead of just survive. That will make quite an impact as people come into this. It is a really important gateway into the destination, and it also is well traveled by our residents as well. So we appreciate your consideration of it and look forward to your decision. Hope it's a positive one. We're excited about it. Obviously, I am. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
Could we move forward with asking for legislative finding for TDC to fund some of the maintenance?
Certainly. And we'll find the answer to Commissioner Meadows' question as well.
There's $6 million left that we have to spend on the bridge project by, I guess, statute of law or something. So, I'd like to see that. We could put that in an account. And from what I understand, it's about $50,000 a year to maintain this. So year 3, I think, we might not have to use TDC funds for this, but.
Okay.
And another use of that money might be a north boat access. We have one on the south, so if we, that's just another possibility of what we need.
Okay.
So.
Well, there's certainly, those two things need to be looked into. So you really don't need a vote on this. You've just been given direction. Is that correct, Mr. Davis?
The agenda items request direction on conceptual design.
Okay, so we have given you your direction.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Come on, Dottie. Dottie has a question.
Oh, hi. I just had
Dottie, would you say?
Dottie Nist, Beach Breeze, NIST. I just had an informational comment about the boulders. I know that some boulders were used when the landscaping was done for the TDC building, and they actually looked pretty nice. I'm not sure if they're still there. Maybe Pam Watkins would know, but I thought you might want to look at that and see how they look.
Okay, thank you, Dottie.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Okay, so,
Just a comment. I think once we determine whether we move forward with irrigation primarily, that'll have an effect on what else can go there, as whether we have grass instead of shells or those type of things. So I think that would be
okay.
the next prudent step.
Okay, when do you think this can be brought back to us? A month?
Next meeting.
Next meeting.
Next meeting? Very good. All right, thank you. Moving on.
Thank you, Commissioners. Next item is a request to award RFP 016007 to Information Transportation Services for E-rate services to the library. This is a part of our ongoing effort for fiber optics throughout the county. In the reaching the libraries was a little different scenario. While the funding is in place and it's part of the budget allocation, that particular component had to be competitively bid, and we did that, and this is a result of that bid. So we would ask your approval to award information.
That will allow the library to provide e-books. Is that my understanding, or what exactly this is?
I think primarily this will get the fiber optics to the libraries for service. I suppose that would be a major component of offering e-books, to have the ability to get them there.
Okay, thanks.
Motion to approve.
Second?
We have a motion and second. Any more discussion among the board? Anyone in the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. All right, motion passes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item is a request to award the base bid plus alternate 1 for invitation to bid 016-010. This is for County Road 285 scrap improvements. We request to award the project to Mid-South Paving in the amount of $1,366,041.18.
And this is scrap funding.
Correct.
This is in my district. It's the worst road in the county. I'm long awaited this, so I make a motion that we approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion among the board? Anyone in the audience? A quiet group today.
Hang on.
Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
A related item, Commissioners, is a request to approve and authorize the chair to sign the contract number 016010 for the County Road 285 improvement project with Mid-South Paving.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? Seeing none, anyone in the audience? Seeing none, those in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
Next item is a request to approve to seek proposals from our professional continuing services engineers for the CEI services for the Western Lake Pedestrian Bridge. We're proud to see this project moving forward.
Amen.
Yes, it's about time. Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Is any discussion or questions among the board?
Which one is it going to be, Atkins or Tetra Tech?
I don't feel that we know yet.
We don't know yet.
No, sir.
Okay.
When will we know?
Buddy, Chance,
Anybody?
how long will it take us to get responses back, do you think, on the Western Lake Pedestrian Bridge project? Next board meeting. Okay. So we'll have you one.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Okay, say any further discussion among the board? Anyone in the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item is a request to approve the landowner property manager agreement for retrofitting existing lighting with turtle-friendly lighting. If you'll recall, this, we received some FDEP and Fish and Wildlife funds to retrofit light fixtures and light bulbs to those private properties within 1,000 feet of state park lands. The approval of this agreement will allow us to enter into agreements with those property owners to do that, those retrofits using the funds that were from the grant.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion? Anyone in the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Commissioners, next item is in reference to the 10-acre parcel that lies immediately north of Helen McCall Park. We looked at it at last meeting or the meeting before, and you asked us to have our environmental and folks take a look at it. If you'll flip back 2 pages, you'll see basically the summary of their findings, that the parcel is approximately 9.75 acres. It contains 8.15 acres of wetlands, 3.65 acres of FDEP Army Corps, and 4.5 acres of Army Corps only jurisdiction. You can see there the wetland mitigation cost is substantial. So 2 things. There's not a lot of high and dry property, and even with the mitigation costs, there's significant cost in developing it. So it may be in, it's going to be a costly project if we move it forward. So.
I think we're going to have to pass just based on. I think we're going to have to pass just based on, allocation of our resources to things that, we can do quickly and less expensive. I mean, we'd love to have it, but we have to prioritize, so.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Madam Chair, that's all we have this time.
Mr. Tusa. Yeah, you. Mr. Cutshaw, okay. Yeah. Did bait and switch on me there.
Bait and switch, yes, ma'am. Good morning, Commissioners, Madam Chair. I'm Jason Cutshaw, C-U-T-S-H-A-W. I'm the Director of Administration for TDC. We would like to request to approve and authorize the Chairman to sign a new contract with SimpleView to continue the Customer Relationship Management Application Services. SimpleView is Visit South Walton's Customer Relationship Management database. It's used to keep track of the company details with different businesses in South Walton, including name, location, key employees, contact information. I've talked with the staff. We've utilized the program since 2010, and the staff that utilizes it is in great favor of it. They said it's a valuable tool that allows us to send mass communications to industry partners and keep track of product inventory, track key analytics such as correspondence with meeting planners, visitor guide requests, lodging partners leads, monthly sweepstakes and signups. It also allows local hotels to be able to log in and update their information to us directly if they change the website, point of contact, special rates, and so forth. but the cost annually is $23,500.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion or questions? Anyone in the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
What is your title again?
I'm the Director of Administration. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Hi. Good morning,
Morning.
Madam Chair, Commissioners. Jay Tusa, TUSA, Executive Director of the TDC. Brian, you want to introduce yourself?
Morning, Madam Chairman, Commissioners, staff. Appreciate your time this morning. I'm Brian Kellenberger, Kellenberger. At our last meeting, we had a decision made on the Walton Dunes beach access project. And so we're back before you again today to ask for further direction on how you'd like for us to proceed. Before we get started, I'd like to give a little bit of timeline of how things transpired at Walton Dunes. I'm going to start sort of in the middle. April 2014, Beach Operations Department was tasked with identifying beach accesses to develop to help people get onto the beach. July 30th, 2014, we came before you as a TDC staff workshop open to the public with what we called our Beach Access Initiative. It seemed logical to me that we would develop pieces of property that we own before we sought to buy property to develop into beach accesses. On September 9th, or at that July 30th meeting, we identified 6 locations. One of them was actually a piece of property we did not own. It was a Topsail Hill State Park location, and some people in the community had come to the County Commission with a request to develop a beach access through that park. Because of its controversial nature, it was separated from the other 5 locations that we do own. And then on September 9th, we had a special meeting where we discussed that, and a decision was made to not move forward with it. So after that, we went back to the TDC Advisory Board with a request on how to move forward with the remaining beach access property that the county owned. A couple of them had dropped out at that time, and so the remaining 3 were Walton Dunes, Bullard, and Montego. It was voted to move forward to the BCC for request on how to proceed, and that was scheduled for the February 10th, 2015 meeting, which was subsequently deleted during the additions and deletions phase of it. So the projects sat dormant until budget formation for FY 2016. I was asked to include some capital improvement money, which I did, identify the projects that we had previously identified. And then we came before you in April of 2014 with a couple of the projects, Headland Avenue and Walton Dunes. And then we discussed it, and there was a couple of different scenarios reviewed, and then what was called the minimal regional beach access was approved. Prior to the 2014, this piece of property had come up before you before. In 2012, the TDC, as part of a parking initiative, identified that area as possible parking areas. It was also included in the AVCOM parking study that was done in early 2014. The final results were given to us in September 2014. November 2012, there were a couple of workshops on this particular piece of property. All the issues were identified and discussed. At that time, it was decided to not move forward. It's my understanding that part of that discussion was based around the soon-to-be land conveyance from the BLM. Prior to July 2013, that property was leased to Walton County by the Bureau of Land Management, U.S. Department of Interior. July 1st, 2013, it was conveyed to Walton County through patent deed through the Recreational and Public Purposes Act. And so I believe the 2012 discussion was in part recognizing that we were going to receive that property as owner of it, and that some of the terms and conditions with the conveyance under the Recreational and Public Purposes Act, include developing that property for recreation and public purposes. So that's where we are. That's the history leading up to it. I'm sure we're all aware of the issues brought up by the people in the surrounding community. And so today, we come back before you to ask you for direction on how you would like for us to proceed on that piece of property.
Was it your recommendation, Mr. Tusa, that we hold a workshop?
It is, yes.
Okay.
I have a question on that, too.
Yes,
BLM, Brian, you said that they conveyed it to us. Can we get a copy of that conveyance document?
You understand?
Not right now, but I just, you said that in the conveyance document, it had some language about, did it require us to do that, or what exactly did it say? What? Yeah, well.
I have 10 copies of
Thank you. Just wanted to get all the information on this before we discuss. The recommendation is to have a workshop. I think that's a good idea.
The conveyance of the land also included the Inlet Beach property, the One Seagrove property, and the Fort Panic Dune Island property. With that, we submitted a land management plan for all 4 properties that included development of Inlet Beach and Fort Panic into regional beach accesses. The property at One Seagrove did not lend itself to a regional beach access, so we developed a cul-de-sac down on that piece of property for loading and unloading. And then there was no desire at that time to develop the Walton Dunes area.
Right.
Not sure why there wasn't, but in the original land management plan, there was no provisions for developing that one piece of property. The language in the conveyance requires that if we do, that it would require an amendment to the land management plan, but that would all be done during the design and permitting phase.
Okay, so that management plan, is it in these documents?
No, ma'am, it's not. What's in there is the actual conveyance document from the BLM. It's about 3 or 4 pages back.
Okay, that's fine. I don't need to look at it right now, but I just wondered if we could get, before we have the workshop, a copy of that management plan as
Yes,
well.
ma'am.
Okay. One of my questions is, as I thought about this, most regional accesses have access off 30A directly.
Yes, ma'am, they do.
You don't have to go back and all that kind of thing. And so that was just one of my thoughts, is that most of them have direct access onto 30A, and they don't have to wind back through neighborhoods to get to
Yes,
it.
ma'am, you're correct.
So, okay.
Inlet Beach would have a slight difference, as it's
Slight difference.
not directly on Highway 98. It's
But
2
it's
blocks.
a little back, yeah.
2 blocks seaward of 98.
And so also need information on, because we talked about this before, on the fact that there is a dune, there's a dune out there.
Yes, ma'am. Page 2 is a topographical survey, and it has the elevations listed. There's what I call a major dune on the western portion of the land, and then what I'd call a minor dune on the eastern portion. The CCCL, Coastal Conservation Construction Line, runs approximately from the northwest corner across the property down to about halfway down the eastern property boundary. The conceptual design that was put forth in 2012 is behind or is landward of the CCCL, and it actually takes into account of, it really doesn't compromise the major dune at all, and it slightly gets into the minor dune on the eastern side of the property, mainly on the back side of it where the what I call the secondary parking area is. It also serves as a turnaround for people that are using the area, so they don't have to travel further down Beachfront Trail. But this conceptual design, once again, was put forth to give an idea of what could be done there, not what we are going to do there. The major components of parking, restroom pavilion, boardwalk, dune walkover, and then some sort of storm water. This shows a retention pond. Our practice now is exfiltration systems, so we don't take up valuable land for a retention pond. That would further minimize any destructive work to the dune.
Okay. Just before we have the workshop, could you do could you overlay this first map on top of the topo and
Yes, ma'am.
locate the dunes on there?
It actually is on there. If you look at that topo, we have the outline of the parking area and the area. See the kind of darker line? That if you look at the first page and the second page, you'll see the boardwalk that comes up off the beach. And if you follow that up, it has the outline of the parking areas and where the restroom pavilion would be.
Do you have the location of the dunes on?
Yes, ma'am. If you look at the topographical maps, they are graduated in 1 foot increments. The lines, the elevation lines, those are the small lines that make circles, basically. And then if you look towards the western side of the property, you'll see the elevation of 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 is right just below if you made the corner where Beachfront Trail goes from north, south, east, west. That large section of the dune is sort of close to the edge of the road. And you can see the conceptual parking is further east of that, so we don't get into that dune.
Brian,
I'd
I
like
might
to have
suggest
that,
that you come to our offices,
Yes, ma'am, we would.
and sit down with us. Some of us may understand this better than others, but I'd like,
I would like to have those dunes drawn on this first page. I want the dunes drawn on there so that I can see exactly, because, I mean, I can see topos and I can see the way they're going up and down, but that it doesn't really help me delineate the dune exactly. So that would be helpful. On the first page, if you would draw the dune locations. Thank you.
We can do that.
the question, could I have a motion first to hold a workshop and then
So moved.
continue our
So moved.
discussion?
Second.
Can you be ready by May the 10th, or do we need to push it out?
I would like to push it out if we could.
June 14th?
Yes, ma'am.
Is, ladies and gentlemen, is that an acceptable date for y'all?
Yes.
Okay. Could I have a motion to that effect, and then we'll
made the
discuss
motion.
it?
And she seconded.
Yeah. Now, is this workshop just to discuss this one thing, or is it?
It'll be
Okay.
just to discuss this piece of property and take
Okay.
citizen input and commissioners' input on what you would like to do with this piece of property.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, how much time do you think we need? An hour? You want to start at 3 o'clock on the 14th of June, or 2:30? Why don't we do 2:30? That way we might have a break between meetings.
Personally, after about 6 hours of meetings, I'm on tilt. I'm sorry, but
Yeah, we all are, yeah.
we're all on tilt. I would prefer not to start our meetings at 2:30 in the afternoon on times when we know that they're going to run into 10, 11 o'clock at night. It's you can't really make decisions, I don't think, after so much information is given to you after a while. So I would like to see it probably just on a separate day, just a separate evening, like a Monday night or something at the annex from 6 to 8 or something. I think that would be my suggestion.
Ladies and gentlemen, got to hear from someone else on the board. Give me a clue.
That's fine with me to have it on a separate night. June, let's just see if we can find one.
Let's see, it looks like
The first Monday in June, what
June
is
6th,
that?
7th, 8th,
First Monday in June is what?
the 6th.
I would make a motion that we have it on Monday, June 6th, South Walton Annex from, say, 6 to 8 o'clock, 6 to 8, or 6 to 7:30.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to hold a workshop on the Walton Dunes on June the 6th at the South Walton Annex from 6 to 7:30.
I got a conflict.
Yeah. Okay. What about the 7th?
That's a Tuesday night.
That's a Tuesday.
Night.
Yeah, that works for me.
I prefer the 8th. I have something all day, the 7th.
Okay. Let's try the 8th. That's a Wednesday.
I'm good there.
Is everybody good?
Hang on one second. Hang on 1 second. Yeah, that looks like it'll work.
All right, you want to amend your motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Workshop,
June the 8th.
June the 8th, to discuss Walton Dunes. I guess we're calling, is that the official name of that?
Yes, ma'am, that's what we call it. So listed in the BLM documents is Walton Dunes.
Okay, Walton Dunes, to take public input, South Walton Annex from 6 to 7:30. Does that work?
Are y'all fine with, what about 5:30?
You have
People
what?
should be off by work by 5:30?
5:30's better.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, 5:30 to 7:30. All right?
Okay.
I believe that's the motion. Is there any more discussion among the board?
Yes, Brian, if you would check with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, because as I looked at the map, this area is in the beach mouse protection zone.
Yes, ma'am.
And just coordinate with them to make sure that, that we're not affecting any beach mouse.
Yes, ma'am, we'll include that during the DO, the development order process. That's all required now.
Okay, thank you.
All right?
But it would be good to know what they think about it, and
Beforehand,
before we do a lot of.
Actually, in the 2013 documents, there is some verbiage that there's no active beach mouse habitat, but it does fall within the domain. They gave a few recommendations on how we should use the property, mainly how we traverse it with our trucks.
They've kind of changed their
They have
scope
changed it since 2013.
13, so I'd like to know that, because if we have to go through if it would take a permit to do that, that would figure into the consideration.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this matter? I can't. Yes, sir. If you will. Ma'am, let the lady in the yellow shirt come first. Ma'am, turn that phone off.
You want me to go first?
Okay. Yes, sir. If you
Yeah.
state your name, please, and spell your last name for the record.
My name is Tommy Bowden, B-O-W-D-E-N. I'm a full-time resident of Walton County. I've lived here for 4 years. I'm one of the homes you're going to have to drive through this parking lot to get to my home. And I guess it's legal to put a through street, through a parking lot. Y'all would know better than me. But when I first moved here 4 years ago, we didn't enforce parking on that beachfront trail. We allowed them to park on the south side. It became a one-way street. And after several instances about hitting children, 3 and 4 year old kids, there are sand dunes on one side. They would dart out in front of the traffic on the other. And after about the second or third time of near collisions, I'd call Cindy, and either y'all made the decision or she made the decision. I was very thankful that you put up no parking signs. I think there were some reservations that, people don't pay attention to no parking signs. They did once you start ticketing. Once you start ticketing, there's been no issues with at least walking traffic on that area. So my number one concern is going to be the safety. They now have a house that sleeps 28 back behind me that rents, and they're completing one that sleeps 40 or 50. These are going to be teenage drivers going through a parking lot. It's a recipe for disaster. I live there. I go there every day. I drive and see it. So my number one concern is safety. I don't believe safety was even mentioned in that AVCON report. Y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but that would be an issue. The other one would be an existing parking lot. We have an existing parking lot. I either jog by there or drive by there every day. It's July 4th, Memorial Day, or Labor Day. It's never been full. I don't know how often y'all go by there. There are just a couple of cars. When my father went to Florida State, they averaged about 20,000 people in attendance. The stadium seated 35. So after he had success that first year, they said, hey, do you want to enlarge the stadium? He said, no. Why would I want to enlarge the stadium? I ain't filled this one up yet. To me, that was common sense. Why we've made a decision to build a parking lot beside another parking lot that's empty, I'll never know. And we keep referring to our area as a regional beach access area. Correct me if I thought we were a neighborhood beach access area where it's a neighborhood environment. If you want to go to the bathroom, go up to the bathroom and walk to the beach. But I was under the impression that we were a neighborhood beach access area instead of a regional. Maybe we could clear that up before we leave for those that live back there. The other thing would be the sand dunes. I live on the beach, and I talked to the DEP about building sand dunes because it helps me as a landowner, and aesthetically, I think it helps the county. And going through the DEP, I had to fill out several papers, had to cut off my left arm, send a blood sample, buy some Russian salt, throw it in my hand, throw it over my left shoulder, turn around 3 times, pull my pants down, and they still turn me down. How we can get it permission to tear down these dunes, and they're fairly large dunes, and even if we just struck the property at the toe of the dune, I don't think it would have the same effect. I'm not a sand dune resident, but for safety issues, we have an existing parking lot, and the sand dune issue, I'd be obviously against this. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And I say anyone else that has comments, remember that we are going to hold a workshop, and we will certainly need to hear from you at the workshop. That's what we're holding it for, but anyone that has a comment. Yes, ma'am. And
I'm Beverly Humphrey, Humphrey.
Great. Thank you, ma'am.
I respectfully request that you all take more time to review these documents and not rush up on June the 8th to have your meeting. It would seem to me important that you look at the documents that supported the negative aspects of turning down the last request. So please put it off another month, at least 2 months, for you guys to look at each of those documents and not depend upon someone else to interpret them for you. Also, before the workshop is scheduled, will you please send out the letters to the residents and the owners within 100 or within a mile of the Walton Dunes Park? Will you do that?
Well, I mean, the commission could choose to, but we don't give personal, in fact, this would be a very bad precedent, to give personal notice of any kind of legislative action, because the legislative action affects everyone in the county.
Yeah, we just encourage everyone, to keep checking with us. You can call admin. You can, check our website. But yes, ma'am, we have to notify people on certain land issues. But this is a legislative item, so we would not be able to do that. But keep in mind, at the workshop, we cannot vote in a workshop. Even if we hold it in June, we just can gather information. And if we feel like we need more information after that workshop, we can vote to hold another one. But we don't vote in a workshop.
Do you have the documents that supported the last rejection?
If we do not, Brian is going to make sure all 5 of us have it in our hands within the next 2 or 3 days.
And you may not realize how complicated and extensive those documents are. I question the time that you've scheduled the workshop. I respectfully ask that you put it off another month at least.
That's the decision of the board. I appreciate it, ma'am. That would be the decision of this board, but we appreciate your comments.
So you can't readdress that issue?
We haven't voted yet. We can, as I say, if we hold a workshop in June, which is what the motion is, if we feel like we need further information, then we can schedule another workshop.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Humphrey, my office, if anyone sent me an email concerning this issue, my office will send out a notice to that person saying when this workshop's going to be, to try to communicate better.
Signs that you ever post? I've seen signs posted on some developments that are underway. Yeah. You don't have any way other than the internet of advising the public?
Can you address this? Because this is not a land issue item. Developments do that. If a developer is going to develop in your neighborhood, then he has to do that by law. This is not a development issue. This is
There'll be an advertisement in the local newspaper.
Yeah,
There'll
we'll put it in
also
the
be an
newspaper.
advertisement. We do lots of advertising of meetings.
Yeah, it will be in the local newspaper.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I think it is land, though. The dunes that's land.
I understand.
But thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else?
Let me ask a question of Public Works. Is there a dead end sign, right out, where just east of this land? Is there a chance?
I'm sorry.
Mr.
Powell, would you answer the question?
Could y'all put one up there that says, dead end, no turnaround or something?
Chance Powell for the record,
Yeah.
Public Works. I actually went down there yesterday, and there is no sign that says no outlet or dead end.
Dead end.
No
Could
through
you get one out there or two, or however you think is reasonable, at the very in
Yes, ma'am. My
the
question
BLM property?
is where we should put that and provide an opportunity for somebody to turn around once they see that sign.
Right. Yeah.
You know, we,
Chance, I was-
maybe a no outlet sign just before you round the 90-degree bend there headed south.
Chance, there's one right at the parking lot straight. I was out there last weekend. Now, there's one there that says dead end, but if you go around the parking lot, if you could put one there so they know when they start down that road past the parking lot that it is a dead end then. Now where they'll turn around, I don't know, because I had to use a condo association parking lot to turn around my car.
I got you. You're talking about the existing paved parking lot on the north end up there? Yes,
Right
ma'am.
past that on the right would be a good place, I think, for a dead end sign.
Chance, I think what you could do on Beachfront Trail is you could put, and we talked about this when we were talking about this access years ago, as I recall, a no outlet dead end sign right at the end of the BLM property on the easternmost end. See there where they're headed into the neighborhood? And then on the north side of that right-of-way, I know we have a 70-foot right-of-way there.
That's 66 or 60, I think.
66 or 70. On the north end of that right-of-way, make a little, a turnaround. Make a little thing where what'd you say?
Like a hammerhead.
Yeah, make a little hammerhead out of gravel, rock, or something so that people see, when they see that sign, they go, oh, okay, I can turn around right here, and I don't need to drive all the way through here.
And I did notice just east of that, you can see the little horseshoe development on the north side. There is a sign there that says no outlet, but I believe it's on private property on their private drive.
And that's almost too late. By the
Yes,
time
ma'am.
you get past the BLM property, BML or whatever it is, BLM property, it's pretty much too late because you're now trying to find a place either to turn around or what have you. So if we could just put some kind of a temporary turnaround there until we get this issue solved.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
And a sign that would I think that would help a lot.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Chance. Okay, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Come forward, please. State your name for the record and spell your last name.
Hi, Kristen Nostrand, Nostrand. I'm not sure the protocol. I'm on the agenda under tab L to discuss this.
Well,
but-
we're discussing it now, so yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay, so bring everything forward? Okay. So here today, and got on the agenda to talk this very issue. I made two requests of you in the application. One was to withdraw or reverse the BCC vote from the April 12th meeting regarding the agenda item 160519, the requested approval of the capital improvements for new beach access at Walton Dunes Neighborhood Beach Access. This is because the proposal was voted on prematurely and without the completion of the necessary steps. I understand that a workshop would be one of those necessary steps, but we have other recommendations that we'd like you to take into consideration. The other request was exactly that the BCC incorporate the following prior to any BCC vote or workshop regarding the Walton Dunes Neighborhood Beach Access. 1, the completion of an environmental study of beach access and the dunes in between the two sandy accesses. This is both to understand the evolution and natural habitat, as well as understanding the storm damage mitigation that they provide for the surrounding neighborhood. 2, the completion of a neighborhood safety study. 3, the completion of a neighborhood traffic study. 4, the completion of a parking needs study. This is something that Cindy brought up several years ago, recognizing the lot available at the current neighborhood beach access designation, as well as that Deer Lake State Park has adequate parking that isn't used today as well. And 5, completion of surveys to determine easements and property ownership. These requests are because at the April 12th meeting, the BCC engaged in a vote based on misinformation regarding a TDC vote that never took place. Specifically, in the December 2nd, 2014 TDC meeting, item 141122, there was failure to approve a recommendation, even though you were told that they had. If you go through the transcripts, you'll see that it was never mentioned. Further, we feel that completing any one of the requested studies will sufficiently convince anyone involved in the inappropriateness and changing the designation from a neighborhood beach access to anything else. It seems that this is clearly a situation where just because something can be done doesn't mean that it should be done. Those were the comments based on the formal request. I have other comments as a citizen and a property owner and a permanent resident of 350 Beachfront Trail Unit 1 that I could take 3 minutes or whatever to go through. Basically put these together to correct some of the erroneous recollections of the past. They're all very factual, data-based, and with transcripts and quotes from emails and previous meetings, because clearly at the meeting on April 12th that I didn't even attend because we didn't know that it was going to be on the agenda, I think you all were misled. So I can read you these, or I don't know what the best next step is.
Why don't you provide us copies, because they're rather lengthy, I assume? Yes, ma'am. Can you provide, email all of us
It's
copies?
3 minutes. I know it's 3 minutes, but sure. Actually, I've got.
If you have copies now, for all of us, that would be great. Okay, you'll have to go that way and make sure the clerk gets a copy. If not, Dory, I'll get you a copy. Okay. Okay, thank you. Say, the clerk got a copy, so we're all good. Okay. And you might want to give our attorney a copy, if you have an extra. I'll get you one, Mark. Okay? Thank you, ma'am. Any other comments? Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Tina Barron, B-A-R-A-N. My husband John and I reside at 207 Beachfront Trail. Very disturbing that this has come about because we've been fighting the issue for so many years. We have done numerous workshops already. We have been to county commissioners. The one thing that I would like for the commission to actually take the time to do is, if you have not visited that location, please come and do so. I would like for us to be recognized as a neighborhood beach access, because that's what we are. We know our neighbors. We know when they're sick. We know when they're out of town. We take care of each other. This is about disturbing our neighborhood. So I would really like for each of you to take the time to come down and visit our neighborhood before making any such decisions that it be considered a regional beach access. I know that there'll be obvious reasons stated of why this should not continue or be developed, but I would just really like to ponder the fact that it affects the quality of our life. Myself, I've had the privilege to sit on many boards and zoning and planning commissions in the state of Alabama, and the one thing that we always consider before making a decision is, how does this decision affect the quality of life for our residents? Quality of life is a big factor when you start to plan developments. So please just take the time before the workshop and come down and visit our community and see what we and why we are so opposed to this development. There's so few little areas left in Seagrove and on 30A, and these are one of the few that truly, truly just needs to stay untouched. There's a public park that is located down the street, which is rarely ever used. And there's lots of other areas that could be tapped into other than Beachfront Trail. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir, the gentleman in the back.
Good morning. I'm Steve Johnston, Johnston, 35 Seawind Court, Santa Rosa Beach, Florida. My wife and I are full-time permanent residents here, have been for 4 years. Seawind Court is the horseshoe that people refer to, that has been the turnaround for every beach vendor, box truck, garbage truck, everybody, and a street that was made to serve 7 homes is just almost been destroyed by all the traffic. Our association has voted to close the street, and we're had to do that because of the destruction from it being the public turnaround. I do have a question about the Hammerhead turnaround that's being proposed. I'm got a little confused about where that was.
My suggestion, can you bring back up the map? My suggestion is, when people don't know where they're going and they go down there and they see this sign that hopefully they're going to put out right, I don't know if you can, right at the end of the eastern end of this beach access property, right in there, where the little hand is. They see a sign there. Okay, to the north and probably over a little bit here. It is county right-of-way, and so I suggested that they create a temporary turnaround made out of shell or gravel or something, so that when people see that sign and it says dead end, no outlet, that they have a place to turn around in the right-of-way there.
Thank you. I'm clear on what you're talking about now.
Yeah.
I could not see
Yeah.
the hand back there where you were indicating.
Yeah, there's pavement there, but people don't know that the right-of-way is 66 feet. So there is room on the right-of-way to turn around. So I think if we maybe formalize that, don't pave it, but formalize it so that people see, hopefully they'll connect the dots. They'll see the sign, and they'll go, oh, okay, I can just turn around right here.
Good, thank you. And I wanted to thank the commissioners for voting to have a workshop. I have a lot more I'd like to say that I'll save for the workshop. I do have a request, and that is, can we have an updated topography map for the workshop? Living there 4 years, those dunes have gotten larger. That topography map is over a couple of years old. I think we need to do a new one.
Okay, Brian, will you do that for us? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor. Let me go back. I believe it is to hold a workshop on June the 8th from 5:30 to 7:30 at the South Walton Annex.
Right.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion among the board? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Mr. Kusa, your updates, please.
There are no updates.
There are no updates, all right. I believe this is your second meeting with us. We want to, again, welcome you to our meetings. It's a pleasure to have you aboard.
Thank you.
All right, next, we will have a public hearing.
Motion to open public hearing.
I have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Good morning, Melissa Thomason, OMB. For this public hearing at the April 12th board meeting, the board approved to advertise and hold a public hearing for the 30A overlay project in the amount of $358,758. And this was part of the realignment of the funding for the underground utility work on 30A from Live Oak to Seaside. The underground utilities were approved to be paid from the TIF funds, and the overlay project was approved to be paid from Prop Fair share funding. This public hearing will amend the Prop Fair share funding into the fiscal year 16 budget.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any I'm getting to it. Did you want to say something first, Bill? No? Okay. Okay. All right. Is there anyone that would like to, could I have a deputy? Okay, they're moving. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on this issue? Seeing none. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Now I need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second to close the public hearing. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
There we go. All right, Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Commissioners. The first item I have is a request to approve the dismissal with prejudice of all claims, including the appeals filed for and on behalf of Walton County, Florida, against the Department of Juvenile Justice, and authorize the chairman to sign any necessary release and waivers with the Florida Department of Juvenile Justice. As commissioners are aware, the legislature passed a bill this past session which authorizes a 50-50 split of pre-adjudication detention costs for juvenile delinquents. This essentially settles all those lawsuits, and we're under a 30-day order from the DCA to tell them whether or not we're going to move forward or dismiss, and we need to have your authorization to dismiss. There's no reason to go forward with the lawsuits.
Second.
We have motion and second. Any discussion among the board? Anyone in the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item is a request to approve new policies for the purchasing policies and procedures manual regarding grants, procurement with federal funds, and conflicts of interest. The federal government has produced a new circular which requires us to have a policy on how we can spend or how we can procure services and goods with federal grant money, and we also requires us to have a conflicts of interest policy regarding those federal grant expenditure policies and funds. I will not take credit for this particular policy. We've been talking amongst the Florida Association of County Attorneys, and the Hendry County Attorney actually drafted this one with some minor changes we've made to fit our policy book, but we'd ask your approval.
We also need these policies now as we're moving more and more towards restore. They are picking apart everything we do, and this is part.
Actually, no. Restore has, through the Department of Treasury, their own rules.
Yeah.
This is for all other federal grants,
okay.
right? I would not tell you that this would apply to Restore at this point.
Okay, because they have been picking apart some of our procedures.
Who's picking them apart?
Treasury.
The U.S. Treasury?
Yes, ma'am.
You may or may not know, the U.S. Treasury Department is the administrative department for Restore Act. They've never undertook that role. This is a whole new ballgame for them, and it's been kind of interesting, to put it mildly.
They'll make a ruling and then they'll change it later, But anyway, I'm getting off topic. Do we have a motion? Second. We have a motion second. Any discussion? Anyone in the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item is, as you know, we have, through mediation, reached an agreement to settle the Abbott versus Olson lawsuit case number 3:14-CV-646. You had previously approved the settlement agreement. We had not drafted and agreed upon a general release. That is before you today. We'd ask you to approve it.
Motion to.
Before we can,
wait.
Madam Chair, I have a business conflict with regard to the Sandestin DRI in this, and therefore I'm recusing myself, and I have filed the appropriate form with the clerk.
And I have a conflict as well. I have filed the proper form with the clerk, and I'm recusing myself.
Okay. Do we have a motion now?
Motion to approve.
Second for discussion. Mr. Davis, you gave us two of these.
I'm sorry.
Start which one?
My apologies. The one that includes the paragraph regarding the federal, the U.S. Attorney federal federal judgment lien. Yes, sir.
Very well.
Has a second paragraph in the indemnity language. I apologize. I meant to tell you that earlier.
Okay, so we have all the
Just want to make sure.
T's crossed and I's dotted and all that.
Yes, ma'am, and hopefully everything will be signed and we'll have distribution, assuming you approve it, distribution by May 1st.
Okay.
Now, she's motioned to approve it. I second it.
Yes, sir.
But maybe we need to add the caveat that we don't authorize the chair to sign that agreement until the other parties have so signed it before us.
Yes, sir. You can include that in your motion, but we wouldn't do that because we couldn't disperse the funds until the chairman, until everybody signs, and we always make the chairman sign last. So.
Actually,
as long as that's
it'll be the
understood.
vice chair.
Yeah, it'll be the vice chair. That's correct.
Signing in this case.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Nay. 2-1.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item I have, yesterday morning, late morning, we received a request by the applicant/declarant Sandestin Development, Inc. to continue the quasi-judicial hearing that you have currently set for April 28th, 2016 on their amended notice of proposed change. I circulated that request to the attorneys for the interested parties, Mr. Heath, his name's Gary Hunter, Mr. Hunter, Mr. Theriak, and of course, Mr. Stewart, who represents the staff. Mr. Hunter had no objections, nor did he support the continuance. He was basically told me he would like to remain neutral. Mr. Theriak had no objections. Mr. Heath had no objections. The staff has no objections to continuing it. I would ask you to tentatively, if you choose to continue it, to tentatively set a date of September 9th. And I say tentatively because there's a chance that it could come earlier. There's a chance it could come later. When you're coordinating with 5 different groups, it's often difficult, including your schedules. But I would anticipate right now, if we could set it on September 9th, then if we do have a different date, I'll bring it back to you at the next meeting.
Okay, that's a Friday.
That is currently set on a Friday, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. At 9 a.m., at a determination to be announced, at a location to be announced.
Madam Chair, as stated before, I have the conflict and I am recusing myself.
Right.
Just don't bring us back the last week of July. That's my vacation.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, we've circulated a number of dates, but right now a tentative date is September 9th is what I'd like to propose.
Very good. Okay, motion to approve September 9th.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Any further discussion?
That would be a continuance and to set it on September 9th.
I have a question, too. It seems like every time we continue, they submit something different.
I think the only change, well, I can't speak for the declarant.
Can we get, if they submit something different, can we get it, 2 weeks in advance in time to
read it?
Yes, ma'am.
Time to read and review it?
That's more than reasonable. You
And
want to go ahead
can
and
you
make
give
that
us a
part of your
copy
motion?
of the, and
I'll make that
part of my motion would be 2 business days, not weekends, two full business weeks prior to the September 9th meeting that we receive in our hands the complete package to review.
And Commissioners, we'll take that motion. If we reset it for a different date, we'll include that 2 weeks. We'll put that
okay.
in our.
Okay.
Yeah. Next in 2 weeks when we do that again.
2 weeks prior to would be August 26th.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I'll make that part of my motion.
And I'll amend mine.
All right. We have a motion second on the floor. Any other discussion among the board?
Yes. Oh, sorry. And that's at 9 a.m., I'm assuming?
Yes, ma'am.
9 a.m. And also, too, there was a lot of discussion about changing the venue because there was just not enough room in the annex to seat everyone who's interested, so that we changed the venue to somewhere larger.
We have a couple of spots in mind. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. We'll see what's
And remind me, because, the people that will be allowed to speak will be the applicants and the attorneys and all that. Will there be any opportunity to speak from the public?
Yes, ma'am. We are required by current
Okay,
case
I
law
just
to
wanted to make
provide
sure of that, because
a time.
we have been getting a number of emails, which I'll discuss in 1 minute. So, yes, if you could come back with us perhaps with a place that would be larger.
And if the date happens to need to change, I'll come back in 2 weeks for that.
Okay, very
Or
good.
the next meeting. I'm sorry.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on this item? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Which brings me to, I, and I'm sure my fellow commissioners, because I read the top of our emails, have been getting hundreds, and that's with an S on the end, of emails on this particular issue. Instead of, we are required to all print out all these emails and present them to the clerk and all. I mean, we're talking stacks at this point. Might I suggest that we have a drop box, kind of like we did for the beach
issues?
Yeah, and our assistants can put everything into that, and then one copy could be printed out. That'd save a lot of time, a lot of paper, and everything else. Once we read them, then they put them in that folder.
Suggestion.
Yes, sir.
If the email, what I've been doing is just filling out one form and then putting all the emails in a file, and then I forward that file to
Okay.
whoever. However, if you see everybody's name is on the email, you know that it is already
Yeah.
a public record.
Yeah.
And it's already on our server.
Yeah.
So you don't need to save every one, do you?
It's my understanding that there was staff going to go around to each commissioner's office with a flash drive, download that information to be put on file.
Okay, good. Okay, I hated
Yeah.
for us to, duplicate ourselves 5 times. Don't
No,
print
you
them.
don't print them out. No, you don't need to.
Okay, because usually we do. We usually print them, and that's a whole lot of emails out there.
But just for clarification, we're only going to pick up on the flash drive the ones that were sent to all of you. If you get one individually, you
Yeah.
still need to do what you've done in the past.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to be, all right. Is that it, sir?
Yeah, other than I wanted, and I should have done it when you approved it, the Turtle Lighting Agreement, I just want to point out that Scott and Melinda did that while Melinda was on maternity leave, and that just gives you some sense of the dedication of that staff. I just
Yes.
wanted to give them a kudos for that work.
Ms. Meadows, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I just had a comment. I've had a lot of people call me and email me about quiet titles. I wanted to suggest that we ask our attorney to bring back to us our options on getting involved in some of these quiet title cases that have
Yes, ma'am.
lately. If you'll do that, yeah, I've had a lot of people say, well, what can the county do? Is the county doing anything? So I'd like to have at least some discussion of that and determine if there are options, what our options are, and then make a decision as to if we want to do anything.
Gotcha. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
That's it.
And Commissioner, I would assume you mean the old ones as well as any that may be percolating along now.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think, yes.
All right. Commissioner Empel.
Madam Chair, thank you. We've gotten to the point of time in the year that we have finished the collecting of sales tax on the bridge, the half-cent sales tax that was imposed for the 331 bridge. And we've got some preliminary indications that it can be used only for the bridge or the park. And I certainly appreciate the fact that Commissioner Meadows also has a concern for that we might be able to use it on some of the landscaping stuff. But I would like to ask that we get together, Mr. Tusa in particular and Mr. Jones, let's get some public input, let's hold some workshops and find out what their recommendations are for the expenditure of these funds so that we can utilize not only what the state is putting in place, but how we can enhance the use of the bridge or the park area to the benefit of the citizens of Walton County and to the tourists that might be coming in play. I know there's about $6 million, and there's been a variety of suggestions, but before the board do that, I think we ought to get as many citizen comments and suggestions as possible so that we can consider them and get the final determination as to exactly how far we can go in doing other than just the South Park and the bridge to utilize those funds. So I'd like to get the staff direction, Mr. Tusa, Mr. Jones, you two get together and come back with an idea for when to hold a workshop, where to hold a workshop or two, and get the comments from the public.
And I think that should include Mark, because there again, if someone will refresh my memory, when we voted, when the county voted and passed that we do the sales tax, was that part of citizens voted on? So do we have to take it back to the citizens to ask, or how do,
I don't think so. My preliminary answer would be I don't believe we would. We have 2 limitations on how we use that money, both the referendum and the bonding agreements. But no, I don't necessarily believe we would have to take that back to the
it might take a supermajority maybe?
supermajority of the board. Yes, ma'am. But that's a tentative answer.
But
That's
anyhow,
good. Thank you. Yeah, that would
I
be
would
great.
ask that staff get together.
Yes.
Come back with what kind of forums we want to get the input in and where and when so that we get the ball rolling on this.
We'll have that for you next board meeting, Commissioner.
Yeah, and that's a great idea. I know I commented earlier that I've been approached about a north, boat launch because sometimes the south is rough and they can do vice versa. So that's a great idea to include our public. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Jones.
I have nothing.
Commissioner Chapman.
Just to piggyback off of Commissioner Infield's concern or statement concerning the use of those funds, yesterday I met with Secretary Barfield Chipley along with Administrator Jones, and our discussion was primarily linked to that particular process and what we can do with this $6 million. I took from that meeting it would probably be best that we wait until the bridge is completed and SCANS has signed off on it and the state has accepted it. I think from what I can glean from him, it would clean up the process if we were to go out and try to contract to do something on the north side or even improve the south side. It'd be easier to work that contract through DOT than SCANS of DOT and everybody else in the world. So you're right. It'd be good to take this time we got right now to have a workshop or whatever process we take so we can have discussions and see what we could possibly do on the north side. I know I've got the same thing that Commissioner Jones has gotten as far as from the public of trying to do something there. There will be a slight realignment of the southbound lanes to the west, so it would probably encroach a little bit into what we used to know as the park there. So until that alignment has been fully set, we're really not sure exactly how much space we've got and to what extent we can do anything there.
Very good. Thank you, sir. I do have a request that we pass a resolution. May 1st through the 7th is Small Business Week in America. And I bring this to you as president of the Defuniak Springs Business and Professional Association, which I am president. The majority of the businesses in this country, 28 million small businesses, they create from 1 to 2 to 3 jobs in this country, for each one in this country, which is a boost to our economy here in Defuniak Springs and Walton County. Most of our businesses are what we used to call in the old days as mom and pop operations, where family and a number of small employees benefit the community. So I would make a motion that we declare May 1st through the 7th as Small Business Week in Walton County.
Second.
I have a motion. And a second. I made the motion. That's right. All right. Any further discussion?
Yeah, me too. I was talking about small businesses, I think, back before it was popular to talk about small businesses. But you're right, they are the core of our workforce, and we see a lot of new businesses springing up, new entrepreneurs, new young entrepreneurs in Walton County, and I think that is especially exciting. And so we appreciate all that they do and all that they bring to this community.
Do we have anyone in the audience that'd like to comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. That's all I have. We addressed the citizens' request. I don't believe Ms. Norstrand, she's, I believe, left after that issue. Now is our time for other public comments. If you would like to comment on something that wasn't on the agenda or something you're concerned about, if you would come up at this time. The lady in the back. Yes, ma'am. Throw that away. Put that in the carbon.
Good morning. My name is Tammy Wilder, W-I-L-D-E-R, and I have been a resident of Walton County for 43 years. I have worked in the school system. I'm a mother of 5 children. I currently live at the corner of Don Blizzard and Alacall Road in the Portland area. I'm here today to ask you, we need some help on our road. We have children that live on that road. We have had an issue of ongoing speeding on that road. We have worked with Lieutenant Savage to help with the law to slow people down. Recently, I had a meeting with Mr. Powell. He has come out to the road and talked with me. And when I talked with him on the phone, his comment was, "Why do you let the children play in the road?" we don't let our children play on the road. We have a resident that's been there for quite some time. We have people that live on that road that are retired. They walk their dogs on that road. They exercise on that road. The road is not very wide itself for the speeding to go on the road. I asked him if there would be a way that we could implement a stop sign at Don Blizzard and at Ruth Road or Thelma Drive, so that would allow them to slow their speed down before they hit the residential area. If you're not familiar with that road, I would like for you to pull it up and look. That is a direct road off of Highway 20 that comes off the road, and it goes straight to the end of the road to a wonderful turnaround that the county has provided for people to go down there and turn around. So they love to ride to the end of the road to look at the bay, and they don't like to slow down. We got to have some help. If you know as well as I do, children tend to dart. They dart by putting them in a car, chasing a ball, or whatever. It doesn't matter what you do. It takes one split second to lose a child. And I'm asking for somebody to help us solve this problem on the road. We have had them sitting and monitoring the road, and it's not, the signs are not helping at all. Mr. Powell, I asked him the other day about putting the stop signs up on the road, and he said that did not warrant. There was not enough people that lived in that area to warrant for us to put a stop sign there. What do we have to do? Do we have to lose a child, or do we have to have somebody hit before that warrants us to put a stop sign down to slow somebody down so they wake up and say, hey, I've got to slow down so I don't hit nothing? I'm really frustrated with this. This has been an ongoing problem, and I've asked for help. I've met with several of you. I hope that we can put a plan in place and get a stop sign there. There is a stop sign in Choctaw Beach. There is a three-way stop at Choctaw Beach off of Jupiter and Cedar Street, and it is on a very dangerous curve. You go, it's a straight shot. The curves like this, you come around that curve, you had to come to a complete three-way stop. You don't even see the stop sign. You're up on it so fast. My road's just a straightaway from point A to point B. So I'm asking that we look into putting a stop sign at those stops.
Chance, would you come forward?
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
With your approval, maybe Major President could have some of the Sheriff's Office take a look at the speeding issue, not necessarily just the stop sign, but if speeding's a problem, maybe we can get that taken a look at, please.
Madam Chair, I think I have the floor.
Go ahead. Let Mr. Chapman speak.
Ms. Wilder, how close do you live to that intersection that you're proposing?
I live right there on the intersection,
On the
sir.
intersection.
Right on the intersection and right next to the road. I'm on the corner.
From there to 20, what's the distance?
It's over 200 feet, and probably a lot more than that. I mean, it's a good distance.
Okay. All right. And in regards to what Commissioner Enfield's talking about, I believe you've had a conversation with the Sheriff's Office or a deputy out there.
Yes, sir. I've been working with them. They have been doing their job.
I understand that.
area.
And you understand they can't be there 24/7.
I understand. And when you make a call to them, if they're on another call, it's
Ma'am.
15 minutes before they can get there. If
Excuse
not.
me, ma'am.
So,
My comments is to make sure that whatever we put out there is going to do what you want it to do. And it's going to take a combined effort of the county and the Sheriff's Office to make it work. And if we go out there and put the stop signs up, and I'm not against it, I just want to make sure we've got that enforcement arm behind it when they can be there to make sure. Because if they're speeding now with a posted speed limit and you put a stop sign up, they probably ain't going to care, and they're going to blow it anyway. So we've got to have that enforcement action to back up whatever we may do out there.
Chance, would you? Chance and I spoke yesterday about this, and can you give us some idea on the stop signs? I think I understood from you. Yes, please. Yeah.
So y'all have a good understanding.
Make sure the clerk gets one.
And while he's passing this out, I know Tammy and I spoke on the phone yesterday. At one point, we had a policy on some traffic calming devices, particularly speed bumps. and I'm living a situation on South Gulf Drive where my grandson darts. He's 2 and he darts. We put signs up. We have police, I'm telling you, I like old-fashioned speed bumps, So I would like to see a policy, brought back to us about traffic, control or suggestions, maybe the stop sign here. I mean, we have to look at each particular, case to see what we need. But, and somebody said, well, they'll just go over the speed. Well, they might go over a speed bump, but they're going to tear their car up as they speed over it. So anyway.
And the only problem with that is then they turn around and sue us. Now, Chance and I have talked about rumble strips or calming strip, whatever. You had a big word for them.
Zip strip.
Zip strips, that might help. But you want to talk to us about perhaps
let me just
the stop signs.
Explain the road here, and what I found when I went out yesterday was right after I turned onto the road, I noticed that there wasn't a stop sign or a speed limit sign for southbound traffic. The road has historically been posted at 25-mile-per-hour zone from Highway 20 south to Thelma, and then it was 15 miles per hour from Thelma to the end. The entire length of the road is a little shy of a mile. And you can see where it says Beaver Residence. I'm sorry, Ms. Wilder, I thought your last name was Beaver. But it is that's the Wilder residence there. So she's at about half a mile, roughly half a mile from the Highway 20. So we had Randy in that district go out. He's going to put up 2 more 25-mile-per-hour signs just after you pull off of Highway 20, and then another one just before you get to Don Blizzard Road. So, and then, we can look at other opportunities. I've got a traffic counter out there right now that's recording speed, and, there may be some other opportunities we can look at to help maybe even try to lower the speed limit a little bit more, because once you get to Ms. Wilder's house, you really enter into a more of a residential type area. Between her and Highway 20 is fairly rural.
So could you put a stop sign at Don Blizzard Road?
Here's what I brought that up on an early conversation with Ms. Wilder, not having an opportunity to see the actual. I was in the car driving when I was talking to her, but I asked her if there was an intersecting road somewhere, and maybe we could look at some other traffic calming measures as opposed to a speed bump. Mm-hmm. And she said she did live at the intersection of a road, and I said, well, maybe we can look at doing an always stop there. And here's what I can tell you: in order to warrant an always stop, there are several things you can do that will warrant that. The main thing is having an equal volume of traffic on each of the opposing roads there. That simply is not going to happen with Don Blizzard. There's only 3 residents on it, and that's not a road that would ever expand into a larger road. You can also, per MUTCD standards, warrant always stop simply for traffic calming measures. That's something that, if the board wishes to do that, we could absolutely do that. But just know that it wouldn't be warranted on a traffic volume, and that's what I was trying to explain to her.
What about moving the stop sign from Don Blizzard 1 block south?
No, there's not a stop sign out there now.
I understand that, but if you, instead of putting it at Don Blizzard, put it at Athena, T-H-E-N-A Road.
Oh, yeah, you're Athena?
Between the two?
That would make a lot. That would help warrant the traffic volume aspect, because there's equal number or closer to an equal number of homes serviced off of those 2 roads. Then,
however, I think for safety reasons, we can override traffic engineers, can't we? For safety reasons.
Override me at any time.
Yeah. We can override. For safety reasons, I mean, we have speeding in my neighborhood, so I know exactly what it's like. We started taking people's tag numbers and turning them in, and the sheriff, can go after them that way. I would suggest a stop sign at Don Blizzard Road, right there on the other side of Don. I can't figure out which way's. I guess this way's north, right? Okay.
If you're reading,
I'm sorry.
If you're reading
that
the words, north is up.
That's okay. So just north of Don Blizzard Road, a stop sign there, and just in a safety. Children at play. You could put those all up and down the road.
We were putting it. The 2 additional speed limit signs and this children at play sign would be erected today.
Okay, children, play, and then residential area, slow down, all kinds of things like that so that people know. And then the sheriff could put out one of those big electronic signs that they do. And they put them out there for about a week or two, and the people realize that they're watching this area, and it tends to help. Now, they may have to put it out there a couple of times.
I spoke to Deputy Enfinger yesterday. He met with us out there, and he was
Yeah.
going to work on getting that
Yeah.
sort of radar sign out
Yeah,
there.
put the little radar sign out there, and then people, and so I think there's about 4 or 5 different things you could do that would really help the situation because, all in the name of safety. I mean, I think you could put the signs where they're not warranted.
And I think the speed limit, why have 25 miles an hour and then drop it to 15? Why don't you have one, 15 or 20 miles an hour throughout the entire road? If you put the 3 traffic stop signs there, then when they run them, then the sheriff has to be able to write them a ticket. Yeah, they can give them a ticket if they run them. So maybe all 3 approach, maybe lowering the speed limit, putting in, do we want to go as far as to putting in zip strips and stop signs?
Don't know that it'd be necessary for
Okay.
it'd probably be posted with an advance warning for a stop ahead.
Okay.
Well, let me ask the board to consider, instead of Don Bishop, which has got 2 or 3 houses there,
Don Blizzard, you mean?
Blizzard, Don Blizzard, that it would be moved, that 3-way stop or all stop sign to Thena Road, which would satisfy that. And it also, keep in mind, having worked the road for a few years, chasing taillights, that if you got a stop sign at point A here and it's a long way down, in this particular case, Tammy's, that it would have the tendency for people to accelerate quicker. If you had that stop sign north of your home, it would limit the amount of acceleration in moving south or even north. So that's why I would think Thena would probably be a better location for the 3-way or all-way stop.
We also have children, though, that live, not just my children, there's other children.
I understand that.
live towards the end.
The end, right.
Yes, down
Because
past that road.
I've had to come down there before because of everybody launching their boats and what have you at the end of the road. But I would think that Thena would probably cover the majority of the children that live within the area south of there. So that would be my recommendation to the board, is that aside from what Commissioner Meadows has already put out there as far as calming effects and what have you, that the stop sign location would be located there at Thena Road.
Okay, and if that's the suggestion, then I do think we need zip strips at Don Blizzard because there are 5 children living right there.
Okay.
So if you put the zip strips
Yeah.
there and then the stop,
And they slow down, yeah.
you know.
Yep. Yeah, it's worth it because if it saves one child,
I've already talked to her. She knows they're going to be noisy.
it's worth doing. If it saves one child, it's worth doing. I agree.
Can we vote on this, or do we need to bring it up at the next meeting, have it on the agenda? You just go do it.
Because you can override it.
Because I can, yes, right, we can override you.
Actually, we do need to vote on, if you're going to change the speed limit, you do need to vote on that.
But that's what I wanted clarification on. You can see on here that you can see the 15-mile-per-hour zone starts at Thelma.
Yeah, why don't you start the 15
Oh, we
at
moving
Don
that
Blizzard?
15. We're going to move that 15 north of Don Blizzard.
Okay.
We're going to install zip strips. We're going to do an all-way stop at Thena Road.
Right.
So I can,
Is the 15 mile an hour going to be the whole road or just?
it will be
2?
25 mile per hour from just north of Don Blizzard back to
Gotcha.
Highway
Okay, that'll
20.
be 15. And then you'll have children at play signs, zip strips. If none of that works, we'll go to flashing lights and
Nails in the road, that's a good, yeah.
and buying an old defunct police car and parking it in your front yard, that works really well.
So we will need a motion then, just say where you're changing the speed limit, so we will need a motion and a second and vote on that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the board? Anyone in the audience?
Thank you.
Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Is there anyone else that would like to speak under public comment? Mr. Nowers, your hand up.
I'm slow.
He is too public.
Are you going to take a break, Madam Chair?
Sir? Yeah, I will. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners. Cliff Nauer, Knauer, 110 Golf Club Drive. Just got a quick issue to bring up. We submitted recently at the board's direction for a grant for replacing the boat ramp at Dead River. The grant, Florida Boating Improvement Project people have reviewed our application, and they've indicated that because our lease is not 20 years long on the Dead River Landing, that we would not be qualified unless the lease was renewed by the Water Management District. And so I've spoken with the Water Management District yesterday, Mr. Cleckley and his staff, and they suggested that we try to get a request from the chairman of the board or from the county administrator to their executive director requesting to renew the lease for 20 years, which would qualify us to try to get funding through the program. And so we didn't have time to get it on your agenda and really just had the discussion with the Water Management District yesterday. And so if there's any way that we can get the chairman or Mr. Jones to send a request to the executive director, Bill said he'll put it on their agenda for their first meeting in May.
Can I suggest, if you choose to do it, just direct the county administrator to send the letter requesting the renewal of the lease, then we'll bring the actual lease back to the board at the next meeting.
Well, I'll make that motion then.
Yeah, so that would clear us up to be able to get funded. That was the only issue that we really is kind of time dependent, so.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion, second.
Mr. Baird, he's the new executive director with Water Management District. I can email you his name and information.
Okay, we have a motion, second. Any discussion on the board? Anyone in the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Nauer. Appreciate it. Anyone else? I don't see anybody. We will take a 15-minute recess, and we will be back for our land. That doesn't make it. This bounces, so it goes like boink. I'm gonna get both of you women a blanket. Yes, if you were chubby, if you're chubby like me, you don't have to worry about that kind of thing. I have my own insulation.
Feels good in here.
They did turn it up.
Y'all need to get a coat.
I'll bring one next time.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Carpenter, are you ready, sir?
Yes, sir. Matt
And
Carpenter
could somebody quiet the group outside? I would appreciate it.
for the Planning Department. Our Planning Director, Mr. Dice, is absent today, so I'll be filling in for him. First item, we have a legislative item. This is a request to transmit the Portland Community Large-Scale Amendment 2015-020. This is a large-scale map amendment sponsored by Walton County to change future land use designation of approximately 109 acres from general commercial to rural low density in the Portland community.
Motion to approve.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion among the board? Anyone in the audience? Seeing none? Ladies and gentlemen, what's your pleasure? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
No nays, motion carries. Next, quasi-judicial items.
Anyone who anticipates testifying or speaking before the board on any item on the quasi-judicial docket, would you please stand and raise your right hand and let me swear you in? Really? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give before this board will be the truth?
I do. And, Madam Chairman, the first two items under QJ, we have a request to continue based on action of the Planning Commission requiring a redesign of that particular abandonment request and the project that follows right behind that. If we could take those continuances.
Matt, I've got a question, Madam Chair. So this is going to go back in front of the Planning Commission again?
No, sir. They made recommendations to amend the project, and the applicant's going to have to amend the project. They did not approve all of the abandonment request, and that's requiring an amendment to the project itself. So they're requesting a continuance at this meeting.
But then how are we going to know that what they've amending satisfies the planning commission?
Well, you have your staff here to prepare a staff report that will confirm that. We will also have the minutes of the Planning Commission. Essentially, they didn't approve all of the abandonment request, and that's going to require the actual development to shift slightly to the west.
But what if the Board of County Commissioners didn't approve any of the abandonment requests? That would require another.
Then we probably wouldn't hear their project immediately after that.
Yes.
They're traveling. They've been traveling together. But if you don't approve the abandonment, then obviously the project will not go through.
Changes, or it changes or doesn't go through. It just changes, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
It just changes. It still goes through, but it changes even more so. So with the Planning Commission approving only part of the abandonment, we should review that before they redesign and resubmit. See what I mean?
Well, yes and no. The resubmittal and redesign is based solely on what the Planning Commission did. So if you could simply reject that and approve the original application if you chose to, or reject the whole thing. If you reject
I'm
the
just
whole
trying to
abandonment.
I'm just trying to save them from going all the way back through here. It seems to me the abandonment petition is the
linchpin. I mean,
It's the linchpin, and so if they can do whatever they want, but it just seems kind of crazy to me.
I mean, if they don't want to come forward with the development order until this is the abandonment is approved, they can. But if they want to redesign both and bring it to you at the same time, that's up to. I would suppose that'd be up to the developer if he wants to spend the money there.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I understand.
But in any event, this board will consider the recommendation of the Planning Commission on the abandonment.
Correct.
Prior to any development. And if that action impairs their development design.
We couldn't approve the project.
But then they're going to say, we spent all this money redesigning it based on the Planning Commission's recommendation, but not the Board County Commission.
I would suggest that we suggest to the applicant that he may want to get the abandonment approved first.
If his project is contingent upon it, or the design of his project is contingent upon it, I would think.
Excuse me, Commissioner, as I understand it, the modification to the project would only be a slight modification to be able to maintain our required setbacks, which they can't if they didn't get all of the abandonment. And again, this Planning Commission action is a recommendation to this board.
I agree with that. I think that, though, that, they're, and of course the plans aren't in here, so we really can't tell, but that's okay. I just, it's up to them how they want to handle it, but I think if it comes to the board and the board looks at it and says, we don't necessarily approve of what the Planning Commission did, then they're back to the drawing board. So, but if that's how y'all want to handle it, then, that's, but they can't come before us and say, well, we redesigned this whole thing. We've spent all this money on the thing, on our, in good faith, hoping that you would approve it. I just want to make that clear that that's.
Yes, ma'am. They understand they're proceeding at their own risk. And they were trying to accommodate the Planning Commission's recommendations in their design before it comes before you.
Since it is a motion to continue, we'll need a date certain.
May 10th at the South Walton Annex at 5 p.m.
Motion to approve, continue to May the 10th. Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? Anyone in the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Item number 3, the Martha's Lane Townhomes is the companion project to the abandonment, and we would bring forward the applicant's request to continue this item to May 10 at 5 p.m. at the South Walton Annex.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? None. Anyone in the audience? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item we have is the Park Place at Inlet Beach replat. This is a replat of a previously board-approved and platted development. In 2008, the board approved a development order reducing the side setbacks from 7.5 feet to 5 feet, with the exception of the perimeter buffer. This is the plat that would result from that development order.
What are the, on the plat, on page sheet 3 of 3, where we have all these little redactions, what is that? What are those? What is that? Is that the setback? What is that?
I think that's a label that we can't read on this photocopy.
And what are those? What is that dotted in space behind on the front and back of the lots? Is that? They're very difficult to determine.
That means, the dark means drainage area. The rectangular black box means drainage area.
Where do you see that?
Up at the legend.
Drainage area. What does that mean? Drain is.
I'm on my new specs. Is the only reason.
You mean are they gonna put filtration systems in? Is that what that means, or does anybody know? Maybe
I'm not
Melissa
sure
knows.
about that.
Maybe Melissa knows.
Actually, if you don't mind me saying, what they're redacting is it says a 10-foot building setback line is on each of those. That's what the language is underneath. If you pull it up on your PDF, you can read it a little more clearly.
Okay, so the plat shows 10-foot building setback line is written. Wait, let's see. It says 16-foot building setback line, or is that 15?
Looks like
16 to me.
That's 15.
15? Oh, okay.
Okay, so the rear is 15-foot building setback, and in that 15 feet, there's some hatching. What is that hatching? Does that just mean that that's setback area? And not.
According to the legend, and I'm sorry, Melissa Ward for the applicant for Saxon Sworn, I've been sworn in. The hatched area is the drainage easement. It is 16 feet.
Okay.
If it would help, I'll bring my tablet over and show you what it shows on your.
Yeah, that would be good. So those are drainage easements? No, the hatched area.
I don't know if it was accidental somehow in the copying. It might have been too small a print. I don't know how that occurred.
Okay, so the hatched areas in the rear of the lots is a 16-foot drainage easement, and the front yard is a 10-foot landscape buffer, and the side yards look like they're 5 feet on some of them and 10 feet on other ones. I'll pass this down to you. There's a 15-foot.
We got some larger pages here.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. That's helpful. You want to look at this? Melissa, hopefully you won't have any photos on there that come up.
What are these then? What are they?
Well, she said that she thinks it's just something on the copier that got copied this way, but Now, are the drainage pipes buried under the easements, or are they swales?
I believe there are drainage pipes underneath, but I didn't work on the engineering plans.
Okay.
The situation, this plat was platted prior to 2008. The setbacks were regular setbacks, 7.5 feet on each side, 20 in the front, 15 feet in the rear, and the drainage easements were approved back whenever the original DO was approved. What happened was the size of the lots were such that the houses were 15 feet wide. And so the developer went defunct. The new people owned the lots, and they came into the county and said, can we get variances? And so individual property owners were going to the Board of Adjustments to get a variance, and the planning department then said, what you need to really do is you need to go and get a PUD and reduce your interior setbacks so that you can have a little bit wider. That's the appropriate way to handle it. So they came back to the board, they got a PUD approved, and they should have replatted back when they got their development order approved. Money, time, who knows, whatever was the delay. They then went back and started building houses, and because the plat is on record, some of the owners were coming into the Board of Adjustments to get a variance even though they had a PUD with a reduced setback. So the Board of Adjustments put a stop to it and said, we're done. Go in and replat it and be done with it. We shouldn't have to hear each and every one of the lot owners. So that's what they have done. And that's where we are today. The reduction is interior lot lines to 5 feet from 7.5 feet as approved by the board back in 2008, I think it is.
Where's the parking?
On each of the lots? They have a 20-foot front setback. Each of the houses, each of the lots front on public right-of-way, so the houses have that front setback and they have a parking area there, or understory as necessary. I'm not familiar with the building footprints on them.
They're all on the corner. Okay, so you've got 10-foot building setbacks on your corner lots adjacent to the roads.
Because we have a perimeter buffer of 10 feet. So
Okay.
the setback can't be any less than that.
Okay. And then you have a 10-foot landscape buffer in front of every lot on Pompano and West Park?
As the perimeter buffer, yes.
Perimeter 10-foot landscape buffer, okay. Obviously, yeah, it is. Obviously, they're going to have to go through that to get their driveway and their parking. Okay, so they're going to have to drive through. Okay, they're going to have okay. And the drainage easements, we think that they're swales, or do we think they're?
According to our development owner inspector, and I'm not sure which particular system we've got in this particular case, I think it's understory retention, but they say all the infrastructure is already in place for this plat.
Okay.
And has been for a number of years.
Okay. Yeah, it is kind of an odd plat, I have to say. And these little black things in our book, it's meaningless. They don't mean anything.
It's hard to see.
Okay. Motion to approve.
Second. Motion is second. Any further discussion? Anyone in the audience? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your time and attention. We are adjourned.
New record.